Welcome to Pieguy Pick'em. Week 15 of the NFL season is already upon us, and it's been a fantastic 2 weeks for myself and the show as a betting, in terms of betting results and just winner after winner. I mean, I don't know if I deserved the Chargers money line on Monday Night Football, but I'll take it. The Eagles imploded again. Jalen Hurts played awful. We'll talk about him later on. The Sunday Night Football game. Well, feels like forever ago. The Texans winning outright. And even the Saints. I didn't bet the Saints, and I thought that it was a good spot, and that came in. The only thing I didn't get was the Bears, but that was more of a ride the streak. And I did cash the best bet, the over. Like, it was a fantastic week. I think maybe 2 or 3 losses altogether. Overall, just a great result from a betting perspective. So we're going to keep it going, keep the mood up, and let's move right into lots of games this weekend. No more buys. The bye weeks are finished as the Chargers going to Kansas City as 5.5, 6-point dogs. My goodness, 5.5, 6-point dogs. The what are they, 10-4 now? The Los Angeles 9-4. I think 9-4 Los Angeles Chargers coming in to take on the 6-7 Kansas City Chiefs. It was a struggle. Herbert looked off on Monday Night Football. He did not have a great game. For the most part, I watched a lot of that game, and I thought it was going to be a struggle for the Chargers to get through that game with Herbert. I was surprised that they came back, pleasantly surprised, but he made good plays with his legs. He started moving the football on the ground, but overall for him, he had only 139 total yards, 12 of 26, a touchdown, an interception. Sacked 7 times, but 66 yards on the ground. 100 yards on the ground combined between Vidal and Hampton, and they were able to use the running backs, the short game, run the ball against Philly, but they weren't able to pass pretty much at all. And obviously the offensive line has been injured. They were outgained by 1.6 yards per play against the Eagles, but they found a way to win. They have a good kicker, and in overtime they were able to move the ball, kick a field goal. They got the ball first. The Eagles chose to kick, which I thought was a mistake given the fact their quarterback is a turnover machine. Two turnovers on the same. Well, I don't want to get into too much Eagles talk, but 2 turnovers on the same play. I mean, come on. The Chiefs, the offensive line injuries caught up to the Chiefs, and the Texans D-line dominated that game. It was, the Chiefs came back a little bit to tie it, but, Nico Collins was all over the place. He had a couple of really nice catches. He had, how many yards did Nico Collins have here? 121 yards receiving. Nobody else really had more than 30 yards for the Texans, but look at the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 14 of 33. Again, like Herbert, 7 carries for 59 yards. The only difference is, 3 turnovers instead of 1. And you ran the running backs only ran the ball for 60 yards, while the Chargers running backs ran the ball for 100 yards. So that's a big difference. I'm not laying 5.5, 6 with Kansas City. There's no way. And Justin Herbert's going to play. Ladd McConkey's going to play in this one. Trey Pipkins is doubtful. Defensive back Elijah Molden is doubtful for the Chargers. Quentin Johnston is questionable for the Chargers. On the Chiefs side, they're still down 3 offensive linemen. Wanya Morris, Trey Smith, Juwan Taylor all remain out. The total has dropped to 41. Both, if Herbert's throwing those, he was missing guys on Monday. Mahomes couldn't complete any pass. Now, there were Mahomes, there were guys dropping balls all over the field, I thought, Sunday night. So I give him a little bit more credit, but it's two pretty good quarterbacks. If they have a good game here, if they're able to overcome the offensive line injuries, this could get up and over. 41 is a pretty low total, but I'm going to pass this game. I want, like, at 6 now, I'm considering taking the Chargers. Short week for the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chiefs are desperate. They need to win out. They need help. Then they need to win this game because now I think I believe the Chargers still have one more game left against Vegas. But let's see, Chargers. They play the Cowboys and the Texans, and then they finish off. The Chargers are catchable because they go on the road against Dallas next week, the Texans at home, and then they finish at Denver. Now, will Denver be playing their players in that game is the question. But, there's no easy games left for the Chargers. The Chiefs could win out here, and the Chargers could lose out. It's not impossible. And the Chiefs have to win this one. They have to win them all, but this one for sure. A loss here is elimination. They're unlikely to make it already, but a loss here would seal the deal. They're not making the playoffs if the Chargers win this game. So but the backs have been against the wall for weeks, and they have offensive line injuries. So 6 is too many. I'm going to play Los Angeles half a unit here. Small play on Los Angeles. I don't like the spot, but the Chargers very good in the division all season. Haven't lost a game inside the division. And Herbert's, one more week removed from that injury. McConkey's going to play. I mean, they didn't play very well last week, and they still found a way to beat the Eagles. Now they get to go to Kansas City, who's, and then this, Kansas City doesn't have to win by 6 points. Again, you trust the Chiefs to win by more. This is the same bit as last week. Now, last week I loved it because it's the Texans D-line against that Chiefs offensive line. That's a mismatch and a half with the injuries. But here, I think Los Angeles can cover this number. 6 is too many. So Chargers plus 6 for me. Probably about half, smaller play, but Chargers plus 6 for sure. I got to get involved here. I mean, this is too many points. With Justin Herbert playing. I thought, when I saw this line, Justin Herbert's not playing. No, this is just opinion. But Chiefs is still missing offensive linemen. I know the Chargers missing them, but Chargers have been running the football. Chiefs haven't. Give me the Chargers. All right. We move along to Duval, where Brady Cook is expected to make his first NFL start. I wonder if, this one you can't make fun of the Jets for. This is just unfortunate. The injuries to Taylor, the injuries to Fields. So they are forced to start Brady Cook in this one. His first NFL start on the road in Jacksonville, where Jacksonville is 13.5-point favorites. The total is 41.5. Jaguars smoked the Colts. They were winning that game before Daniel Jones left. We'll talk about the Colts later. I'm going to save that because that's obviously the exciting game later on. But yeah, they were smoking them before Dan Jones left the game. Is this, is this a spot where Jacksonville off a big win over the Colts? You got Denver on docket, Colts, and the Colts after that again. Is this a little bit of a letdown here? I'm not sure because the Houston Texans are putting the pressure on. I mean, they beat the Chiefs last week. They're looking very, very strong. I would only bet Jacksonville. It's a rookie quarterback making his first start on the road, but I don't know why I'm not fading the Jets more. To be honest, last week they didn't show up to start the game. Now you got a rookie quarterback starting, but maybe that juices them up a little bit. The Jets have covered these big numbers. We saw against Baltimore, they were 13.5-point dogs. They covered that game. New England, they were 13-point dogs. They landed 13. So the Jets have been, keeping it not academic, essentially, within 2 scores. So I'm no interest in betting this game. I'm not laying 13 at home off a big win like that for the Jaguars taking control of the division. And I don't, you can't bet rookie quarterback being his first on the road. It's Jacksonville or nothing, but right now it's nothing because I like Liam Cohen. Is he really gonna, I know he's starting to figure out his quarterback, and Jacksonville has a ton of buy signs. So maybe I should be on Jacksonville here, but it's just too many. Does Liam Cohen really have to pull out the good plays to beat the New York Jets? This could be the most vanilla game. We've seen the Jags do this, where they play this vanilla offense, and they just win the game by 10 points. It's this game should be over a half, but again, the rookie might. Like I said, remember the new puppy came in and they covered that 13-point spread. Now we got a new quarterback again. Maybe they'll cover the 13-point spread again, make it look reasonable anyways. I think, as bad as the Jets are, you can't really, you can blame them. They're a bad organization, poorly run franchise. But I'm not going to make fun of Aaron Glenn this week because it's, what are you going to do here? One team's rolling. You got to start a rookie quarterback on the road. It's not an ideal situation. And your best wide receiver is out for Garrett Wilson. I believe he's still out for the season. So, no play here. Pass. All right, a big one here. Buffalo Bills, New England Patriots. Patriots 1-point home dogs. The 11 and 3 New England Patriots home dogs here to the Buffalo Bills. The total 49.5. Buffalo's defense isn't good. We know this. They're not very good. But 11-2 New England Patriots. My apologies. 11-2 New England Patriots. Maybe they will be the 11-3 New England Patriots. Maybe that was foreshadowing. I don't know. Will they? But yeah, the Buffalo, Joe Burrow throwing that pick six, handed Buffalo. Buffalo was dead to rights in that game. I was sitting pretty, and then Joe Burrow goes and throws a pick six, and then another pick, and I'm sweating. But luckily, got the backdoor cover, and the Bengals covered. Lost outright. Their season looks to be over. But the Bills didn't look impressive in that game, outside of Josh Allen, but they found a way to win, and they are getting healthier. You look at their injury report, couple of questionables, but Joey Bosa, he's going to be back. Spencer Brown, he's back. I don't see Deion Dawkins on the injury report at all, so unless he was placed on IR, he should be back as well. I believe he was back last week. So the Bills are getting healthier, and Josh Allen's playing very well. Like I said, the Patriots coming off the bye, they're 11-2. The Broncos, I believe, are right there, tied or just below them. The Broncos might be the first seed in the NFC right now, but I don't really pay attention to the standings too much especially at the top. But I'm more interested in the playoff picture, who's needs to win to make the playoffs. But obviously, this is a 2-game lead for New England in the division over the Buffalo Bills. This win would clinch the division for them if they were to win here, because there would be 3 games remaining. They'd be 3 games up, and they'd have the tiebreaker. If Buffalo were to lose this game, it starts to get a little dicier for Buffalo making the playoffs. A little bit dicier, but it gives this team in Miami a little bit of hope. Because remember, Miami did beat the Bills earlier in the season. And they still have a game against the Patriots, and I believe the tiebreaker's divisional record, and that could have Miami having a higher divisional record if New England were to sit everybody week 18, and the Dolphins were to win that game. I was looking at that earlier, but definitely, the Bills still got to play the Eagles, but how good are the Eagles right now? And they still have a game against the Jets and the Browns, so it's not like Buffalo's really in danger of making the playoffs, even if they lose this one. But I think they got to make a statement here. I don't think you can lose both to the New England Patriots. But I think the Patriots are the better team. I make this New England -1, not Buffalo -1. I think the Patriots have been the better team. Drake May's been excellent. They're also getting healthier, coming off the bye. But I think that there's a better, like, this is a coin flip. Okay. New England could 100% win this game. Buffalo could win this game. I think they have a chance to win this game. I think this is a true coin flip, especially, Josh Allen back there. He threw, another 3 touchdowns last week. Their run game was solid again. Josh Allen had 78 on the ground. It's starting to get to that time of the season where Josh Allen's going to be running the football. That, of course, unlocks the Bills' offense a little bit more. So I like points in this game. I like this. This total looks a little bit low to me. I think this should be around 51, maybe a little bit higher than 51. Because Drake May and the New England offense should be able to score on this Buffalo defense that hasn't been good all season. Burrow picked them apart last week. Drake May can pick them apart here. Kayshon Boutte, the wide receiver, his analytics are outstanding right now for New England. He's been an excellent addition to this receiving corps. Obviously, Stephon Diggs torched him in the first game. I think there's still hard. Stephon Diggs seems like a guy. There's still hard feelings there, but Buffalo's obviously getting healthier, getting their tackles back. Keon Coleman still sucks, but their run game's pretty good, and I think Allen can make things happen here. I think Buffalo can score enough here. I lean to the Patriots. I would only bet New England here, and something just about this game though. It feels like the Bills are going to get one here. It feels like New England winning this game is just too easy. New England, is going to win the division. Denver's got a tough schedule, and New England after this they play the Ravens and then the Dolphins and another middling team. So I think the Bills will, they will answer back here. The Bills aren't one to lose 2 in a row to the same team. They've shown fight. They came back last week, albeit Joe Burrow assisted. But I think, like I said, I would only bet New England, but I don't want New England because I think it's going to be really close. What I like is the over. I think both offenses should be able to move the football. This total is way too low in my opinion. This should be in the 50s. Give me the over 49.5 full unit play here on Pieguy's Pick'em. All right, let's pick up the pace a little bit. Cardinals, Texans. Texans 9.5 point home favorites. The total here is 42.5. So, the Cardinals were injured to hell and high water. Sorry, didn't mean to take that off. The Cardinals were injured to hell and high water last week. That was the angle betting the Rams. The Rams coming off a loss. The Rams absolutely stomped them. But if you look at Arizona's games, why is this timer? Okay, sorry. A little technical difficulties here. There we go. I had a timer on for some reason. So if you look at the Cardinals games, though, the divisional games, and they're in the toughest division in the NFL, one of them anyways, definitely now the toughest with the injuries to Daniel Jones. I believe you can't argue this is the toughest division in the NFL, the NFC West. They've been smashed. In the non-divisional games, they've been in every single game. They were in the game against Indianapolis. You remember a few weeks ago. They were in the game. They beat the Cowboys outright. These non-divisional games have been close. The Cardinals have been right there. And Texans, this isn't the kind of team you want to be laying 10 points with defense first mindset where, they can hold on to a 3.7-point lead fairly well in the fourth quarter. They don't need to really run up the score. It's a non-divisional game coming off big win over the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Now you got a Cardinals team who's banged up coming in here. Still injuries. I mean, now the injuries aren't as bad. Walter Nolan could be back. Max Melton's still out. There's a lot of people still out. Marvin Harrison Jr. Kevin Beachum is back. The offensive line. Budda Baker's healthy. Clarence Campbell is going to play. But again, the questionables here: Walter Nolan, Christian Jones on the offensive line, running back DeMarcado doesn't matter too much, and LJ Collier, the defensive lineman, as well as Elijah Higgins, the tight end, all questionable. All could play. Like there's a chance. A lot of them, illness for some of them. A limited participant for Walter Nolan. Limited. A lot of these guys are limited. Got in some practice time. if Cardinals get good injury news, if Walter Nolan's playing, if some of these guys are playing, I might consider taking the points here with Arizona. They haven't been awful outside of the division. They've been horrible in the division, but outside of the division, they've been keeping it close. The Texans aren't exactly a team that I trust to run up the score, but I don't know if I really want to get in front of this Houston Texans team. I should probably just pass the game. But this track record of Arizona has me a little bit interested because this is 9.5 is a lot of points. So I will consider betting the Cardinals on Sunday. If you have the gumption to join in or to bet them yourself, I don't even know if I'm going to get there, but I do lean to Arizona here. The Texans are excellent. Nico Collins is cooking. The defensive line is fantastic. How good their defense is. Stroud is starting to figure it out, but it's not the best spot, and it's against a team who's given everybody outside of their division trouble. And I think that pattern could continue, especially if they get some of their key guys back. Walter Nolan, Kevin Beach, of course, is back. So it could be a closer game than what's it at the end. This was 10, and it's come back to 9.5. So I think there is some sharp support here for the Cardinals. So I will consider the Cardinals. I'm going to take a look at the intro. I need Walter Nolan 100%. Like that's the big piece in the trenches that I would like to see back for the Cardinals. So, and Michael Wilson has been playing outstanding. So shout out to Michael Wilson. He made a good catch. And again, they got blown out by the who was it? The Rams. The Rams last week. They got blown up by the Rams, but. The Rams put up 40. They still put up, 20 points or something. They still put up some points. It wasn't like they got blanked. The Rams' offense is just too good right now for the injured defense of the Cardinals. So it's not like, they went out there and laid down. The Cardinals still fighting a little bit. So I might get there plus 9.5. But I need Walter Nolan. I want to see who's in on Sunday. So wait and see approach on this one. All right. Ravens, 2.5, 3-point road favorites, a total of 51.5. I haven't bet it yet. I've been fading the Ravens consistently. I've been betting on the Bengals since Burrow's been back. But that loss to the Bills, the post-game comments by the Bengals, they were talking in past tense, as if the season is over. They're saying this was a bad, this was a troubling season. This was, a rough go of it. We wanted it to go better, but injuries, we wish we had better. Past tense. They're thinking about vacation. When a team starts talking in past tense, it is a fade or it is a pass, or it's a pass in terms of the side. For the most part. Not a hard, every rule has its exceptions, of course, but they are now thinking as if their season is over. On the other side, a team who has, I bet against back-to-back weeks, Bengals and the Steelers. I cashed both tickets, and I cashed the money line last week at a big plus number on the Steelers. The Inzer Magic was in play, of course. As the Steelers were able to throw the ball down the field, I think that surprised Baltimore last night. I think they were surprised to see Pittsburgh throw the ball down the field. That's the first time they've done that in a while with Aaron Rodgers. So I think that the Steelers caught the Ravens a little bit off guard with that game plan. And at the same time, the Bengals have quit. And the Ravens have been significantly unlucky. You talk about the fumble with Likely on Thanksgiving. There was I think there was a really bad call against them in the Steelers game that could have gone either way. I really think it probably got Baltimore a little bit. So they haven't had the calls. They haven't, they've had the bad break after bad break. I know Lamar is not healthy. I know he isn't 100%, but he's going to play. Like, he just doesn't practice anymore. Like, he didn't practice on Wednesday. And the line didn't move at all because it's just he hasn't been practicing Wednesday. He's going to play. The only one really questionable is Rashad Bateman and safety of Darius Washington. And, of course, T. Higgins is out for the Bengals. Makes it a little bit easier to play against this team. I'm betting the Ravens 2.5 here. I'm this number's wrong in terms of the Ravens probably shouldn't be laying points on the road against anyone, but they've been snake bitten 2 weeks in a row. Games they probably should have at least had a chance to win. This is the second meeting against the Bengals. It's a rapid revenge spot. The Ravens season is very much alive. They still, if they win out, they will win the division, I believe. I have to look into it, but if Pittsburgh loses one for sure, right? They would. They still have lots of hope to win the division. And you can't. I don't think you lose another divisional game. I think you got to win this one. So the Ravens season is still alive. They had 4 or 5 wins in a row, lose 2, tough ones. Yes, Lamar's an MVP Lamar, but he doesn't have to be MVP Lamar here. You just need to win the game by 3 points here. So I am on the Ravens, and I've been fading them, the last couple of weeks, but now I'm back on them. I think I've had a decent read on this team for most of the season. So yeah, the Bengals are thinking about vacation. The Ravens are thinking about catching the Steelers. The Ravens are pissed. Sometimes that can be a good thing. Sometimes that can be a bad thing. But the Bengals defense is bad enough that Baltimore should be able to score. And if the Bengals offense is thinking about vacation, they could be a little bit off kilter. So yeah, Baltimore minus 2.5 for me. I will be on the Ravens here. All right, Browns, Bears. Bear. Browns, Bears. The Bears are 7.5 point home favorites. The total here 38.5, 39. The Bears, came down to the last little bit, and I was watching that game, and I won a lot of bets last couple of weeks, and I've won tons of money on the Bears. But DJ Moore was open on the last play, so Caleb Williams, had a chance to tie up the game and or at least or go for the 2-point conversion and try to win. Obviously, would have covered the spread if they had scored and missed the 2-point conversion, which would have been fantastic for me. Now, big game against the Packers. You lose, and next week you got the Packers again, where you can potentially take the lead in the AFC North for the second time this season. And in between, you get to play the Cleveland Browns and Shedeur Sanders. This is a sandwich spot if I've ever seen one. Classic sandwich spot. Toronto Maple Leafs last night, game against Montreal, game against Tampa, looked fantastic. Go to play San Jose at home, a middling team, young team, lose in overtime, and then they got Edmonton on Saturday. Of course, Connor McDavid, if you follow hockey. So, Packers, big Black Friday game against the Eagles, win that one. Big game against the Packers, tough loss. Next week, you got the Packers coming up again. You can avenge that loss. And in between, you got to play the Browns, and you got to win by 8 here to cover the spread. So I'm not interested in the Chicago Bears this week for once. However, the Browns injury report is pretty horrible. You look at Aiden Huntington still out, the defensive tackle. The running backs don't matter too much. Dylan Sampson's still out. David Njoku remains out. Wyatt Teller's still out. Cornerback Denzel Ward is out. Deshaun Watson's out too. Who cares? And then guard Zach Zinter and guard Joe Batanio, questionable. And tackle Jack Conklin is out. So big injuries on the offense, offensive line here. So I don't want Chicago. I don't want Cleveland. I don't want the over. I don't want the under. Cleveland games, who knows? So sometimes they can explode like they did last week for, 60 points or 58 points, 59, 60 points, right? 31, 29, 60 points. And sometimes they can have 13 to 10. So I don't want a total. I don't want either side, because this is a horrible sandwich spot for Chicago, but at the same time, the Browns are injured, and Chicago, if they show up, it's a home game. If they show up, they can win this game by 14 plus, no problem. So pass for me. Move along. This might if there wasn't a returning 44-year-old quarterback potentially this week, this could be one of the most interesting games on the docket, because for a 12.5, 11.5, 12.5 point spread, Do you trust Philly to win this game? Just win. I don't know. Las Vegas Raiders, Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles, like I said, around 12-point home favorites, total in and around 38 and a half. The books don't expect Vegas to score very much. I mean, their team total is going to be like 13 in this one, 13 and a half maybe. The Eagles, I mean, the Chargers did everything they could to hand them the game. I don't know if they did everything they could to hand the game, but the Eagles had basically every opportunity to win that game, and they didn't. A.J. Brown is playing fantastic. The defense is playing great. Jalen Hurts sucked. He was horrible. He single-handedly cost the Eagles that game. I mean, the interception overtime, you had 2 turnovers on the same play. You throw an interception, the guy fumbles, you pick it up, and you fumble it again. I've never seen anything like that in my life. 2 turnovers on the same play. The fantasy football people, well, that ended somebody's season probably. My season's over. I had 3 Patriots, and they were on bye last week, and I needed to win, and didn't get there. Drake London being hurt didn't help either. But the Las Vegas Raiders, though, I mean, this is maybe the only team in the NFL who was more dysfunctional than the Eagles. Remember, Chip Kelly is gone. Nick Pitulo is still there in Philadelphia, so maybe advantage Raiders there. And Pete Carroll, of course, kicking the field goal to cover the number last week. This team didn't give up. Down 17 late in the fourth quarter, and they went and scored 10 points to get the cover. Kenny Pickett will start this game, the former Philadelphia Eagle, who might be playing better than Jalen Hurts right now. He looked pretty good. I think he had 90-something yards on his 2 couple of drives. I'll double check that. But he looked pretty good. And I know they don't have an offensive line. And that's the main concern here. But there is absolutely no way I'm laying 11.5, 12 points with Philadelphia against anybody right now. This team, they had the stupid positivity rabbit in the locker room. That's gone now. That didn't work. A.J. Brown getting lots of targets, lots of yards. That didn't work. They still lost last week. I say Nick Sirianni, I was never a big fan of him from the beginning. And this Petula guy, he doesn't have it right now. Maybe he'll figure it out. But there's no way. I told you last week, it's time to fade the Eagles. Like when you're putting inflatable bunny rabbits in your locker room, that tells me there's problems in the locker room. There's issues in the locker room. And that's I said happy Easter and it's December. Give me Vegas. The Kenny Pickett revenge game. Yeah, 97 yards, a touchdown, sack once. I know the Jalen Carter's out. Outside of him, the Eagles pass rush hasn't been fantastic. Kenny Pickett might be like Chargers are able to run the ball. Ashton Genty might be able to run something. I mean, the Chip Kelly offense is gone, and they kind of got going. Geno Smith is gone, and those two have been the biggest problems with the Raiders this season. Maybe then the offensive line. But, and again, if the Raiders are down, 14-21 in the fourth quarter, well, Pete Carroll might kick a field goal to cover the spread again. I wouldn't be shocked. He did it last week. He's allowed to. I see people... who is it? It's Dave Port. I can't remember the guy's name, but somebody, you gotta, do horrible things to Pete Carroll, things that I would never mention. He has every right to cover the spread and kick the field goal there. It's part of the rules. If you can't handle losing, don't bet. Okay, stay out of the game. That's it. That's what I'd say to people who were crying last week about Pete Carroll kicking the field goal. It's part of the game. He's allowed to kick the field goal. Guess what? He's in field goal range. He can kick the field goal. That's how the game works. Yes, it sucks. I lost a play on a leverage penalty that didn't happen with the Colts and Broncos. I was very upset, but I came back next week and I made my bets. I understand the Zebras are going to take some away from you. The coaches are going to take some away from you. But, saying, if you investigate Pete Carroll and do these other horrible things to Pete Carroll, that is absolutely absurd. And you should be ashamed of yourself for saying that. Grow up, okay? If you can't handle a team kicking a field goal and they're in field goal range, just because they were down 10 and they covered the spread. They're completely allowed to do it. It's within the rules of the game. You know, the spread is made where I know most teams don't care about the spread. Well, when you're the Las Vegas Raiders and you have had a horrible season, an incompetent offensive coordinator, a quarterback who's throwing interceptions left and right, and you get your backup here coming in, Kenny Pickett, and he starts to look good. You want to score, why wouldn't you want to score points from? Why wouldn't you want to get some positivity going to the next game? Nothing's been working for this team. Of course they're going to kick the field goal. It makes perfect. It's like the positivity rabbit. You got to get some momentum rolling here. So I have no problem with Pete Carroll kicking the field goal. I have problems with the crybabies complaining about, well, you bet on the spread. Like I said, you don't need to win. When you're laying big spreads, you got to remember the teams don't need to win by that much. But could they? Of course they could. But anyways, it's ridiculous nonsense what was going on last week in terms of calling out, getting upset with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll did what he should have done because the Las Vegas Raiders, like I said, have been a disaster and they need to get some positivity going. I think Kenny Pickett might be the positivity. And, and I don't trust the Eagles to win by 3 points, let alone 12. So I'm betting on Vegas plus 12.5. And I'm betting I'll have something on the Las Vegas money line because I'm sticking to my guns. It is time to fade the Eagles. Even with this no offensive line Las Vegas Raiders team, even with them, Kenny Pickett might be the best quarterback on the field on Sunday in Philadelphia. And if Kenny Pickett goes down the field, the Las Vegas Kenny Pickett, Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers go down the field and score a touchdown on the first drive, right? And the Philadelphia Eagles offense, Jalen Hurts comes out and does nothing, or he throws an interception. The crowd will turn right away on this team. Absolutely. On a dime, they will get booed in the first quarter if that happens. I can almost guarantee that. This Philadelphia crowd can turn on a dime and it can be a negative sometimes. I don't think it's a good thing they're at home. I think they were better off on the road. Now you got to come and it will be, and that can get things going, especially in a locker room where you need a positivity wrap. So give me Vegas on the money line. I got the gumption. I trust, and I like that Chip Kelly's gone. I like that Geno Smith's gone. I like it's Pickett, and I like that Carroll's, backdoor covering teams getting some positivity going. They got a little bit more going, in my opinion. A little, that shekel of positivity they got by scoring 10 late with Kenny Pickett is more than what's going on with the rabbit in the Philadelphia locker room. So Raiders for me. All right, so move along. The Giants are 2.5-point home favorites against the Washington Commanders, 46.5 to 12. I believe it's Jackson Dart this week. I should have probably double-checked, but I have no interest. And it's Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota and Jackson Dart, I believe, are going to be the quarterbacks in this game. I have no interest in betting this game. The Commanders' injury report is a mess. It's Deebo Samuel, who knows? I don't know. He's questionable. They have tons of injuries already. I'm not laying points with the Giants. This team's got 2 wins, and Washington has had their number for, quite a few seasons. So, yeah, I mean, Mariota's been good. I would only bet Washington here, but the injuries on Washington are of great concern. But, like I said, they had to remember, they got shut out by Minnesota. We like the teams off the shutout, but again, it's December. You didn't get shut out in September, where you still have life in the season. The season's over for both teams. You get shut out, but it was December, like I said. And in the long run, nobody's going to remember that 31-0 game. It was 2 teams who are going nowhere right now. The Vikings fans might remember it, but I mean, Washington's not going to remember this game, that 31-0 game down the line. But at the same time, Mariota's been pretty good, so I lean Washington here. I would only play Washington, but the injury report has me off this one. I don't try, especially if Deebo's out. The Giants are the better team here, but they haven't really been winning either. So pick your poison. I think I'll stay out this one. All right, this should be a fun one. Detroit Lions, Los Angeles Rams. Rams 6-point home favorites. The total 55.5. Much better than these. Finally, after weeks of 38s and We were the 33 last week. We got a total of 55 here, and there's two reasons for it. And two reasons for that. One, Detroit's defense. Well, Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch, arguably their two best players after Aiden Hutchinson, out. A bunch of guys are questionable, and the Rams' offense can't be stopped right now, unless you're the Carolina Panthers. And even then, like, Stafford threw a couple of picks in that game. It's not like the Rams have been punting very much. The Rams punter, has been collecting paychecks sitting on his behind for most of the season because they're not punting. It's turnover or they're scoring points here. I guess he's been holding the ball for, is it Cardi still? Or whoever? I think they got a new kicker, but in the kickers haven't really mattered too much in Rams games considering the final scores. I took the Lions early in the week when I saw the 6 pop. I just said, well, Detroit can't be 6-point underdogs here. I mean, Jared Goff going back to LA, a lot of connections here. They played well against the Rams. Dan Campbell and Jared Goff as an underdog have historically been very, very good against the spread. Detroit, when the Lions are the underdog, that better suits their identity. When they're big favorites, it can be tough to back. I back them as big favorites, but I love backing them as underdogs because they're gritty and they'll find ways to, intangible ways to make plays and force turnovers. And, on fourth down, someone will make that extra block, that extra effort. They fight to the end. This team, and they're down 14 in the fourth quarter. They're going to go for 2, and maybe push that. This team's not going to give up. So it's why, as underdogs, they're very, very good. The problem is the Rams. I don't know if they're going to be able to stop the Rams here, which is why I am also going to be on over 55. I could care less. It's 55. Look at these two offenses and tell me who's stopping who. The Rams defense, since Quentin Lake has got hurt, has been not very good at all. They allowed, the Cardinals were able to score on them last week. The Panthers were able to score on them at will a couple weeks ago. This defense hasn't been great. And of course, the offense, the Rams get to 40 by themselves. Detroit's going to get to 17. This isn't the Eagles defense from a few weeks ago that shut them down. I don't think either team is going to have any trouble moving the football. The only concern is if either coach decides we got to run the clock, like if they pull a Shanahan. That's the only concern here, in my opinion, on the over. But I am betting this over, and I've already bet the Lions. The Lions +6, over 55. This should be an absolute treat to watch. After all those Browns, Titans, and 38, 37, 36-point totals, it's nice to see a 55 in the NFL. And it's nice to bet the over because 8 touchdowns, that's all we need. I didn't get there. Over 55. All right. Big one. After last night's result, a really big one in the NFC South. And Carolina, New Orleans, Week 15, when this was announced, I don't think anyone had this circled on the schedule. It was one of the biggest games of the season. But for the Carolina Panthers, this is the second biggest game of the season. Panthers, 2.5, 3-point road favorites. The 2.5s are disappearing as we speak. The total is 40.5. I am on Carolina -2.5. And I like the Saints. I like Tyler Shuck. I like what he's been doing last couple of weeks. The defense has been playing great. They got, receivers, and the running back was pretty good. The run games are pretty good. The offensive line is starting to get healthier, though I think Fuaga might miss this one. I'll just double check that. But the reason I'm on this is Carolina coming off the bye. I know it was a really big win over the Rams 2 weeks ago. I understand that. But with Kirk Cousins doing and Kyle Pitts, I know there was a little bit of controversy in the last touchdown, but they won that game. With them winning last night, that puts Tampa Bay's divisional record as right now 2-2. And the Carolina divisional record right now, I believe, is 2-1 because they swept the Falcons. And Tampa split with the Saints. It looks like Asim Richards is out for New Orleans, but Fuaga will play, so okay. J.C. Horn expected back for the Carolina Panthers. That is a big return. So with this win, I believe if the Panthers win this game, that will push their divisional record, I believe, to 3-1 because they beat the Falcons. They smashed them 30-0 early in the season. And then they won that overtime game. The Falcons falconed it away. And then they lost the Saints. If they were to win this one, that would put their division record 3-1, and they'd be 8-6. Right? They would just then need to beat the Bucs one more time, one of the two times to win the division. Doesn't matter which one, because then they would be 4-1 in division. They would have the divisional tiebreak, even if they lost to the Bucs the second time. Because at worst, they'd be 4-2, and at best, the Bucs would be 3-3. And the Bucs, if they lose one more game, can only win 9 games, and the Panthers will have had 9 wins if they win this one and they beat the Bucs. So this is a crucial one for the Panthers. Horns coming back, and another key thing here: the Saints off a win have been atrocious. Absolutely terrible, the Saints off a win. I'm going to pull up their schedule right now. So remember, they have 3 wins on the season. Okay. Their first win came October 5th, week 5 against the Giants, 26-14. They lost the next week, 25-19 to the Pats. Okay. A little bit of a respectable performance, but if you look at the stats, it was pretty decent game. Okay. But, let's go to their second win. And this is the one that I really want to pinpoint. They beat the Panthers 17-7, and then they lost 24-10 to the Falcons the next week. Looked horrible. Outgained by 1.7 yards per play. They were awful in the second game. And they lost the first time by 6. They didn't lose by much, but lost by 6. I know it was New England. Was at home. They lose by 6 here. They lose by 3 here. And it's another 2.5 disappearing. I was still, as long as you can get a 3 or better, I like Carolina in the spot. It's cheap. Carolina is a better team. New Orleans off a win the last time was completely dreadful. They're off a win again. I was waiting for this spot. I didn't know if I was going to get the spot, but I was waiting. Carolina should know what's at stake. Their franchise is iffy. But again, this game is huge. You win this game, you just have to split with the Bucs, and you win the division. One win. You could clinch the division next week if you win this. But you got to win this one. This is a big one after Kirk Cousins went and did what he did for you. So, Carolina, you're watching this. This is the second biggest game of the season. Your biggest game of the season will be next week, obviously. But again, you only need to win one of the 2 against the Bucs if you can win this one. So, Panthers minus 2.5. I know they've been up and down, and they've screwed me, and they've whatever me, but... And I'm a little bit worried about New Orleans, but again, this is sets up well, especially with that win last night where, Carolina can now be 1 win away from the division with the win here, and New Orleans off a win, which they've been 0-2, and the last time they were off a win looked horrible against the Falcons. So give me the Panthers minus 2.5. All right, just going to take a sip of water here. One second, just got to fix the cord here. Fell off. All right, and we are back. As we move along to Denver, where the Broncos are 2.5 home dogs. Yes, the 11-2 Broncos, home underdogs to the Green Bay Packers. The total 42.5 on the board. There's 43.5 on the board. Mostly 42.5 though. But there are enough 43.5 that if you like the under, you can find one. I don't like the under. Actually, I don't know. Again, Green Bay's in the same spot Chicago's in. A non-conference opponent in between 2 games against each other. You're going to Chicago next week. It's a big one. But at the same, I'm not betting Denver. I worry about Jordan Love here. It's going to be cold. Now, I know they play in Green Bay. It's cold. It's going to be altitude here, cold. And it's a horrible, horrible look-ahead spot to Chicago. Because even if you lose this, the Packers won last week. So even if Chicago wins, you lose this game. You just beat the Bears next week and pretty much lock up the division. The Lions obviously can come and take it from you. But you pretty much you're back in first place if you win again next week. But I don't want Denver. Green Bay's the better team here. but it's Denver or pass. You can't, Packers is road favorites after in this horrible sandwich spot. But I can't take Denver against a good team. This team is one ugly all year. They did beat the Eagles, but you look at the Eagles now, it's not really saying much. Outside of that, who have they beat? They beat the Chiefs, not the best win. They didn't beat. They lost to the Chargers in that one matchup. The Denver's one ugly, and I'm worried about them here. If Jordan Love has a good game, Packers could win this one, but it is a good defense. If you're betting on Denver, I don't blame you. I would only take Denver, but I don't want Denver. I would only, I don't want Denver. Denver is on my fade team. They're on my overrated list. The Packers are on. The Packers were on my fade list. They're no longer on my fade list. I'm starting to believe in the Green Bay Packers. I liked they've been on a good run. I was worried about that Bears bet last week, but we had the over, so wash. Obviously that was the best bet. A little bit more on that. This is if this was the reverse and Denver had 2 games against the Chargers, I would be all over Green Bay here, 100%. But I could see Denver winning. I could see Green Bay winning. I have no interest in this game. It should be a great one to watch, but the big game for Green Bay is next week, so this pass. All right, Titans, Niners. Niners 12.5 point home favorites, a total of 44.5. Not betting Tennessee off a win, absolutely not, no chance. But at the same time, Cam Ward is playing better. He's figuring things out. He looks like he might be okay. He looks like he'll be the starter next year. And the mismatch of offensive coordinators, mismatch of offensive weapons. It's this is a bad mismatch. Now I could lay here with the Niners. I could consider laying with the Niners, but I don't know if I trust them here. The Niners defense isn't great. The Niners are a dead nuts over team. I don't know if I trust the Titans to score points here. After they got 31 last week, a big win over the Browns, letdown spot. It's Niners or pass, but Cam Ward's playing a little bit better. His number's a little bit expensive. I think the value here is with Tennessee, but you can't bet him off a win. Could maybe play the over. I could look at the over in this one. I might consider the over. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at this 49ers injury report here, because those are always long and lengthy for the last few seasons. San Francisco, here we are. I believe so they're in the playoffs right now. I believe they're 9-4, tied with the Chicago Bears. They have the Bears coming up after the Packer game. A couple of defensive injuries for the Niners. Lloyd Cushenberry could play for Tennessee. Dan Moore questionable. Guards. So the whole Tennessee offensive line almost is questionable. So Sunday, keep an eye out if the Niners, if the Titans have their offensive line. I might play 44.5 because Tennessee could get to 17 here, and then they should 28 for the Niners, no problem against this Titans defense. Over consideration. I'll probably small bet on the over. But let's not spend too much time on this game because oh boy, what has happened in the NFL? Phillip Rivers may start I didn't think I would be talking about Phillip Rivers starting an NFL quarterback in 2025. The man has grandchildren, or a grandchild at least. Some of his sons are older than his teammates in this one. Tyler Warren, the starting center, I believe, are both younger than Rivers' oldest child. But here we are, and he is. Riley Leonard's got a sore knee. I don't know if he's going to go. Brett Rippon. I don't want to see Brett Rippon. We all know who we want to see. We want to see Phil Rivers out there, and I think it will be Phil. I think he gives them the best chance to win. The problem is I believe it's Seahawks Texans the next 2 weeks. Like that is rough, or 2 of the next 3 at least. Braden Smith, right tackle, is out for this game, so it might be Jalen Travis or could be Josh Sills, Dalton Tucker. They might shift some things around on the offensive line, but other than that, healthy on offense and the quarterback, obviously. Sauce Gardner's out. Javarius Ward's on IR, so it's going to be Kenny Moore and Mekhi Blackman. So the look ahead for this game was Seahawks minus 3.5. The Seahawks have been great. I'm backing the Seahawks. I like the Seahawks. But that's a 10.5 point move. And Daniel Jones was already hurt. I bet against the Colts last week. I bet Seahawks. Who did the Seahawks play last week? I don't remember the Seahawks play last week. Gosh, I can't remember who the Seahawks played last week. I laid it with them against the Vikings 2 weeks ago. Were they on bye? Oh, they played the Falcons. Right. I bet against the Seahawks last week, like a moron. That was one of my no wonder I don't remember that game. So I bet on them 2 weeks ago. I bet against them last week. They covered both weeks, obviously. They've been covering these big numbers. But, this is a 10.5 point move. Now, it is a quarterback injury, but is Phillip Rivers worse than an injured Daniel Jones? Probably. Is he worse than Riley Leonard? Probably not. He's probably better. Is he worse than Brett Rippon? Probably not. I think he's going to start. If he doesn't start, even if he doesn't start, 14 points against this Indianapolis Colts team. I think this is too many. This isn't the Minnesota Vikings with Max Brosmer. All right. This isn't, who else did they pump? This isn't the Falcons and I watched quite a bit of that Seahawks-Falcons game. The Falcons had opportunities, and they falconed, per usual. Like that game was kind of tight, and then they let Sam Darnold get going. If Sam Darnold gets going here, I would worry. But Sam Darnold's been iffy, and I worry he's starting to get going against Falcons. But 14 points? Really? This team, the Indianapolis team, was like power rated top 5 a few weeks ago. I know quarterback injury, but everybody else, and Sauce, quarterback injury, Sauce, and right tackle. Okay, real players. But, I think that, they're still alive. Their season isn't over, and they're going to hand the ball off, whatever amount. This is what I forgot to check, so I'm going to quickly look it up right now. But, Jonathan Taylor over rush attempts has to be a bet, right? It's probably going to be ridiculous, but I don't even know if the market's open. Let's see. Player props. Oh, maybe we have it open. Taylor. Rush attempts. Oh, it's only 20.5. Okay, yeah. So Jonathan Taylor over 20.5 rush attempts. That'll be the first half. All right, that'll probably be a pretty, that seems like a no-brainer here. Like, they're going to drop back Riley Leonard or Phil. Shane Steichen isn't the Titans offensive coordinator. Oh, I forgot to mention that in the last breakdown. The Titans actually ran the football last week, and guess what happened? They won the game. So the Colts have a smart offensive coordinator. They're going to run the football here. I know the run game hasn't been as good the last couple of weeks. I know the Seahawks defense is very, very good, but they're going to give Taylor 30 carries if they can. All right, they do not want to drop back Phillip Rivers, 40 times in this game, or Riley Leonard. I know he's taking a beating. I know, maybe you got to save him for next season, et cetera, et cetera. This season, you're one game out of a playoff spot. You still have a chance. You play the Texans next week. All right. They didn't call Phillip Rivers if they were throwing in the towel. Okay. This team's not quitting. Colts plus 14, Taylor over 20.5 rushing attempts. I know the Seahawks came to bite me last week, but the 10.5 point move. It has to be you're talking like Patrick Mahomes is out and Tim Boyle's playing. And Riley Leonard might be Tim Boyle-esque, but I think Philip Rivers has got something in the tank, and I'm gonna. And I've seen the argument for the side. I understand the argument for the side. But the Seahawks also have the Rams coming up on Thursday night. Are they really going to pump Philip Rivers and the Indianapolis Colts? Are they really this is a nice-hearted storyline. They don't want to see him go down. They don't want to see him get hurt. If they're up 10, 14 points late in this game, I think they're not going to blitz. They might let Philip Rivers dink and dunk his way down the field and kick a field goal or score a late touchdown. Not let him, but play a little softer defense. I don't think this is going to be. I think we might see some. Especially if the Seahawks get have a nice big lead in the fourth. I think Rivers is going to go out there and chuck it. We might see some second string players. We could get a backdoor here on a 14. You definitely get a backdoor, especially when you have the Rams coming up. So. I think there's lots of ways the Colts cover this game. First of all, I think there's it's not another question. They're in the game, especially if it was Sam Darnold. You never know with that guy. He's been sus the last few weeks. I know he got going, but that's because the Falcons let him get going because they're the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm on the Colts plus 14, and I'm on Taylor over 20.5 rushing yards. Yep, we're making some dirty bets this week. We're on Colts plus 14. The Panthers is a favorite. The Las Vegas Raiders, but this week is tricky. It's tricky, and here's another tricky one: Minnesota Vikings, Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys 5.5, 6-point home favorites. The total here is 47.5. That was the spot. I should have had more on the Vikings last week. That was the dream spot. As soon as I saw those tackles were back off a shutout loss. It's a bad defense. I think I'm going to stay away. I don't trust McCarthy to put 2 good games in a row. But this is too many points. I'm not laying it with Dallas. Now Dallas has fresh life because the Eagles are doing what they're doing right now. They're positivity rabbit, but can't lay 5.5, 6. This is a pass. It's a total again. I don't know what McCarthy's going to do here. Dallas probably gets theirs a little bit here. They should probably score. Maybe you can look at the Dallas team total over here. That would be 41.5. It would be around 26.5, 20. This is high, right? The Minnesota defense is pretty good. Yeah, I lean Vikings. As soon as I saw this number, so I got about 6 points, and the money's come in 5.5 mostly, I believe, on the board right now. So I agree with that. I think this is a little rich. When we see it cross the 6, you know what they say, you like the dog. I might play Minnesota small. Lean Vikings here, but I don't trust McCarthy. I think this is a. If I have a good day, I'll play Minnesota small just for some action. But for it's a pass. Dallas again. They're off a loss here. But again, the Philly loss to the Chargers. Again, they're still alive. 1.5 games back. Philly. Remember we talked about that that run they had 2 years ago. They ended up losing to some bad teams down the stretch. I can see the same this time. So, yeah. Dallas is definitely live, but they don't need to win by 6. And Minnesota, if McCarthy plays all right, they're live to win this game. So, all right, we have the jersey on. All right, we're 6 and 7 here. Miami Dolphins, Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers 3-point home favorites, total 41.5. I bet the 3.5 earlier in the week. What is going on here? What is going on here? Okay, we have technical difficulties. Okay, there we go. Okay, now we got this going on. Oh, great. Oh my God. I'm sorry, folks. Just technical difficulty. It reset me like 4 or 5 times. Oh my. All right, there we go. I got 3.5 with the Dolphins earlier in the week. Too many points for the Steelers to lay. Like, how many times did the Steelers win this game by 3 points? Probably a lot. 41.5 the total. The Steelers' run defense, again, wasn't great against the Ravens. The Ravens ran all over them last week, but Yins are magic, and some bad decisions by Lamar. And some downfield passing by the Steelers, which I mentioned earlier, which was very impressive. That was, quality offensive coordinator from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I haven't seen that in a long time. That was a good, well-called game. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is in his ear. The OC there in Pittsburgh. They're favorites to win. They should be favorites to win the division right now. They're favored in this game. I don't like it as much at 3. I think that the Steelers likely win this game by 3 or less. I think that is but at 3, of course, you could still take Miami if the last string of pushes. But I got the 3.5 early in the week. I thought that number wasn't going to last because Dolphins have been playing well. Dolphins have been running the football well. And Dolphins came out ready to play last week. I didn't expect that against the Jets. I had the under in that game. I thought it was going to be one of these low, slow. It kind of played out like I said. I said either the Dolphins smack them, the Jets don't score much, or it's a tight game that goes down to the wire. And the Dolphins smacked them, and the Jets didn't score much. But the Dolphins just scored so much in the first quarter. Now, Devon Achane was on the injury report this week. I'm just going to quickly. I don't know if he's going to play because it's still early in the week. It looks like Cameron Hayward isn't going to play. TJ Watt is out, so maybe that's a little bit why we see the movement here in terms of the Steelers moving from 3.5 to 3. I really like this at 3.5. Like I thought about it early in the week. Yeah, limited practice for Achane today. I think he's going to go. Running backs don't matter too much. Jalen Wright and Oliver Gordon should be fine. Olive Garden, as I like to call him, should be fine. So, yeah, I'd still take the Dolphins at 3. Still be an official show play. Dolphins plus 3. The Dolphins have done this, last year. Remember, they started poorly, and guess what? They fought their way back to 500. They win this game, they're back to 500. Their playoff hopes are slim, but right now you're tied with the Kansas City Chiefs. So, they haven't quit. I think McDaniel's going to come back next year. So, yeah, Dolphins for me. Again, I got 3.5. So I understand if you're hesitant here at the 3, but I think the Dolphins should be able to run. This passing game is a little bit of a concern because the Dolphins secondary is kind of their weakness. But I don't know. Do they that downfield passing game out of nowhere against Baltimore? Do they stick with it? Maybe, maybe not. Was that saved for Baltimore? Because we know these Tomlin rah-rah games, sometimes they save things in the division. So, but, this is a good watch. It's a sneaky Monday night. I want to see the Steelers passing game. If they continue to throw the ball on field, they continue to do successfully with Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, and other wide receivers there. And I want to see if the Steelers' run defense continues to get gashed because that's really where I think Miami can do damage on the ground. The ground attack's been very, very good. So, and like I said, the Steelers winning by margin, they're kind of like the Texans. I don't trust them to win by margin. They're more of they won by 5 last week. A lot of their wins tend to come by 1 score. So, getting 3.5 I thought was too many. 3, like I said, you could still take the Dolphins, but I understand why I would be a little more hesitant. All right, no buys, long show, technical difficulties, but we got through it. Pieguy9871 on Instagram and YouTube if you would like to follow me for plays and show updates. All right, the best bet. We finally had a nice best bet winner last. I know the bets overall have been fantastic. I'm not as strong on these bets this week. There's nothing like remember we had that Bears spot 2 weeks ago. I really liked Houston last week. But I got to pick a best bet here. It probably would have been the fish if it was still 3.5, but you can't get that anymore. But we had an over last week to break the best bets. Now my totals haven't been great. I've been much, much better on sides this year. But, I think this is a pretty good. I think we get 50 points in this game. So I will be playing New England Buffalo over 49.5. That is the best bet here on Pieguy Pick'em. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Enjoy the games this weekend. Good luck on all your action. I'll see you next Friday. Regular time. Another edition of Pieguy Pick'em. And let's go, Phillip Rivers, back in the league. Have a good night. Day, morning, day, night, wherever you are. And goodbye.